Hey, welcome back to Mental Game Live today. In the middle of the day, it's 2 o'clock here Central Time on November 13th, joined by my man, Bhrett McCabe out of the bullpen. He's going to get us through, call the plays, call the pitches. Here we go. Bash, I sent you a message. If you want to take care of that guy, he'll join us if you want.
Yeah, send it over.
Okay.
Send it over on here.
Yeah, because today what we wanted to do is we wanted to answer your questions. So if you've got a question, make sure you drop it in the comments. And if you're on Instagram and you're watching, got a question on Instagram, is your book good for non-athletes with anxiety? 1,000% it is. 100%. And Kick Anxiety's Ass is about, it's really not a book about athletics. It's a book about experiencing anxiety. I wrote it in the lens of being an athlete, but really more of a lens of me being a sufferer of panic attacks and anxiety. So it could be of help. So today we're going to go through a bunch of really cool stuff. We're going to talk, got some great questions lined up. We're going to have somebody probably join us that I think has got a really interesting story and talk about how he can improve. Something that we've wanted to do for a long time. We've just never pulled the trigger, is having people come on live and talk. The role of Mental Game Live has always been a way to have a free resource for individuals to get their questions answered about how to improve their game. And so it's a free thing. We cut and paste a ton afterwards. So hopefully it's a resource that is helping you. Listen, Kick Anxiety's Ass. It is doing exceptionally well. And I will tell you that we did not do any pre-marketing, probably to the questions from my team. I just wanted to get it out there. And whenever you release a book, there's all these plans on how to market a book. Okay. And one of them is you reach out to 30 friends and you have them put 30 Amazon reviews up, and they all read the same. And so a couple of insider hints, right? I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to do something different because I wanted a book that was a snowball effect. I didn't want to come out with a big bang and then everybody forgot about it. I wanted this book to be a book that really, really helped people. And I wanted people to put up reviews or criticisms of people who actually read the book, who actually suffer and have been either helped or have more questions about anxiety. So if you've read the book and you've purchased it through Amazon, I would be honored if you would put a review up. Don't worry. I'm not going to get mad if you don't like it. I'll just try to be better. Okay. My job is for us to try to be at our best and to have a book and a resource that's not, well, you got to do mindfulness and you got to do, no, let's really talk about anxiety and let's get after it. The individual comments that people have sent me, I've been blown away. I'd love for people to post those on Amazon, but I've never posted an Amazon review, so it's hard for me to really do that and ask people to do it. But if you have, please post a review on Amazon. If you want a great book for somebody who's suffering from anxiety in your life, whether it's you, your friends, your family, your team, it is a great book for anybody who's suffering from anxiety. So, Bash, any thoughts going into today?
No, man. I'm just ready for the ride.
You ready for the ride? Okay.
Yep. I'm here. Ready for the ride.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to have on somebody, and we're going to do this a little bit more often. And so let's have somebody, and let's kind of do like a little live session here. Let's bring Richard on. Richard from the gallery.
Hey.
What's going on? How are you?
How we doing today? I'm good.
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today. So you had reached out to me last week with a really interesting question. And so let's start fresh like you haven't done that. And ask the question that you had and see what we can do to help you, because I think what you're asking could have a really interesting influence on a variety of different people, whether or not they have your condition or not.
Sure. If I recall correctly, I asked what would be the advice you would give someone who recovered from a spinal cord injury, competing in their first competitive adaptive tournament? What kind of advice you would share with someone like that?
So competition is always competition, right? But yours is different. Right. You are starting a competition with known limitations. What are your limitations, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, compared to most, I have ambulation in all four of, my legs and arms. Most of my nerve damage is down the left side of my body. So with golf, the charge of that being right-handed is transferring weight onto my left side. My left leg is weaker. And then probably the easiest way to show is I have full dexterity in my right hand, and then my left hand has slower dexterity. So my golf grip is all kind of funky, and I've pretty much had to alter the way I swing and grip the golf glove, and just kind of make it my own, if that makes sense.
It's funny, right? Because before we get into that, there's always this almost an apology when somebody says I have to make it my own. Do you notice that, Bash, when you hear that? Yeah. I have to kind of make it my own, versus if you were cooking and you had this killer gumbo. I mean, I'm from South Louisiana, but a killer gumbo. I mean, you're like, this is the way I make my gumbo. And there was a line out the door. You wouldn't apologize for doing it differently, would you?
That's true. That's true.
Okay. So when we know that we have this ideal swing, and we look at Tiger Woods or Charles Howell or, Ludwig Aberg and all these people, we look at those as the ideals. We do that in social, in things of also beauty, right? Well, they look like this or they move like that. And yet we ignore the fact of you probably, knowing you have a limitation and limited strength or flexibility in the left side, you probably have a magnified in the right hand. Okay. Your body's going to accommodate, right? So there's things that you can do. Now, knowing that, there are things that will naturally be mistakes or limitations or gaps or pitfalls for you, right?
Right.
So what kind of shot creates the most stress for you?
I mean, probably the driver, full swing driver, just letting it rip. And that's purely because of most of the hardware I have is in my neck from T1 down, or I guess C4 down to T1, because I have rods down the back of my neck.
Car accident, or was this, if you don't mind me asking?
It was actually a diving accident into Lake Martin here in Alabama.
Wow. God, lucky you're alive, right?
Yes. So there's that. I mean, I have that to be blessed for. The second is just to be able to stand and walk and talk to people. I mean, I should be truly, if not dead, I should be in a wheelchair controlling myself with my tongue and, eating through a tube kind of thing. So my injury is not my outcome is not normal, basically, is what most neurosurgeons told me. So
can I share with you a personal story? And not to try to, I worked for the adaptive athletes at Alabama for a long time, and for a couple of years, and they would bring me in to work with them in the wheelchair, tennis and basketball. And they would always say, come in and speak some motivation. I'm like, okay, that's backwards. Okay. Because what you've been through and what you've overcome is pretty dramatic. My dad lost both, he had a bilateral neuropathy below the knees, sudden, out of nowhere, due to service in the military and exposure to chemicals. And it came on dramatically. And for the last 10 years of his life, he wore AFOs, or assisted, walking devices below his knees. And he never complained, but everybody around us was always like, he'd put these on and you'd hear him walking down the hallway or whatever. And we'd go to Disney World and he wouldn't get in a cart or scooter. He'd walk the entire thing, and he'd always wear pants. And when he had his first medical crisis, he, about 8 years later, he was in the emergency. They had hit something and caused a GI spillage. And in the middle of the night in the ICU, they had to do emergency surgery. And his blood pressure was running low. He was fully septic. He was in full septic shock. And the surgeon came out and said, I don't know what it is, but your dad's at 68, 69 years of age, and he has the heart of an 18-year-old.
That's awesome. And
if it wasn't for those AFOs that he walked on for 8 years, his heart wouldn't have been strong enough. He had a heart of a marathoner, that he wouldn't have survived the surgery. It gave us 2 more years of his life. So the thing that he hated, and the thing that my dad was a big, strong, former athlete, military man, that he had this disability, actually became a strength for him. Okay. It saved his life, and it gave us some more time. So it's very easy. And I'm not one to sit here and say this, so I don't want to say this lightly. There are things that you don't do very well, but don't assume that you would have done them very well prior to the surgery anyways. Right. I'd rather look at the things that you can do pretty well right now and look at what that strength is. And if it's hard from a full out swing to maintain and to gain more structure on the left side on a full swing and fully release it, is I would look at some accommodations that you could do and say, like, whether it's teeing it down more, or getting the right side to clear more and to cover it more. And it doesn't have to be the perfect booming drive, but your drives just need to be highly functional.
Exactly.
And find that, because it's easy in competition. Remember, competition impacts us. It influences us, the way we move, the way we think, our decisions and our processes and our grittiness. So for you, you're probably going to gap into more of what I can't do in competition and the frustration there versus, hey, I know I can do this. So my right side is stronger. My grip is probably much stronger, and it's probably stronger than the normal right-handed grip now. So how can I set up the driver to allow me to do that? Maybe moving the ball back a little bit in your stance so you don't have to carry so far to the left side, maybe something to think about. And playing with it and knowing that fairway finder may be your goal.
It has been. And I would say I've been truly experimental with that of, like I said, I've honestly I've never had a lesson. I picked up the game about 2.5 years ago. I didn't play golf before I was injured. I was outdoors doing all sorts of things. But I was an athlete back in high school and basketball, football, track mostly. But this was something that I realized I'm not beating anybody in a foot race anymore. So
Me either. Okay.
Yeah. So I realized that, hey, I can stand in one place and just rotate my body and just use my hand-eye coordination and hit this ball. And slowly realized I can actually be pretty good at this, and started to compete even with friends and maybe score close to them. And then last year I scored in the 70s 4 times. And that was kind of like okay, I can actually do this. I can be pretty good at this.
Do you know Alex Forey?
I do not.
No, the one-armed golfer?
I do not. I have I've been blessed to be connected to Chris Biggins, who is
Chris Biggins is a legend.
Yes, he is the man. And it was this past February. My friends and I were at my bachelor party up at a lake, and I told them how, hey,
I'm sorry. You went to your bachelor party at a lake?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And if you're worried about like me diving or swimming or anything like that, it doesn't bother me at all. I love it. I grew up swimming. I grew up all that. Okay. So all right. Not much scares me anymore after going through everything I've been through. But I told my friends I was at work one day, and I look up on the TV, and there is a U.S. Adaptive Open playing at Pinehurst. And I'd never heard of it. And I was like, that's me. I could do that. I can 100% do this. And my friends were like, you need to reach out to Chris Biggins. And so via Instagram, we reached out, we connected. And he said, hey, come on out to Birmingham Country Club and let's just meet. So we talked for a little while, and he brought out 5 balls, said, grab your 7-iron and just hit these 5 balls. And so I remember hitting 3 of them. On the 4th one, I topped it. And I was like, Chris, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to impress you, man. And he's like, dude, you're blowing my mind. You hit the ball as far as I do, if not farther sometimes. So you've got this. And that's
Chris's disability is it?
He has cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy. That's what I thought.
Yeah. And he's actually he's in Dubai right now for it's the DP World Tours. They call it the G4D. It's their final. They're in Dubai. I think it's the 17th through the 19th is when they're competing. But I really just needed validation from somebody that had competed at that higher echelon level of like, hey, is this worth my time? Would I be any good at this? And after that meeting with him, he was like, you absolutely should start competing.
Well, I think the thing about it's that mindset that Chris had, right? It's not, what can't I do? When you go into competition, I want to challenge you to look at it. One is, you haven't done competitions a whole lot. So we're still building our portfolio of being in that moment, which is definitely different. It's not the same. It's not the easy. It's not what we think it's going to be. It's going to be more of a challenge. So we have to embrace that. Also look at it as what you can do to accommodate performance. I mean, it's the same thing that my tour players do when they get out there. They look at a lie and they accommodate it based on their strengths. We assume that they do it the same way every time, but they actually don't. They look at what they do and the way that they go about doing it, and they look to accommodate it and make the play happen, right? So if you can keep that mindset going into it, knowing that you're going to be nervous, knowing you're going to be stressed, and by the way, you're not going to play as good as when you play at home. All right.
Oh, yeah.
People ask all the time, why doesn't my range game transfer and why doesn't my at-home practice range transfer?
Yeah.
It doesn't. The reason
it's not the same. It's just not the same.
Different environments.
Yeah.
Different environment.
Yeah.
And the thing is, instead of getting mad at ourselves that we didn't perform there, you have to flip the script of say, what did I learn there? Because it's like going up to space. If the first time you were shot in space, you wouldn't know what to expect. But the next time you go up there, it's better. It's a very silly analogy, but I've had a much faster recovery on this hip than I did my first one. And somebody said, why? I said, because I'm not afraid of making it worse. I was terrified that I was going to dislocate it the first time.
Okay.
Now I'm moving into 4 weeks post-surgical. I'm as normal as I look normal. I can do everything I want to do. And so the difference is because I've done it before, right? And that's the thing that we have to remember is that when we're in those environments, you're going to experience some things you haven't done. So be very, understanding of what you're trying to do and stuff like that. And we can help you. And the game can teach you. And it's like, okay, what can I do to get it through? But if you're measuring against what you used to do or can do or should be able to do, you'll fail.
Yeah.
Wait to evaluate at the end.
That does help. The fact that I didn't play this before and I didn't compete in golf before, so I didn't have that expectation.
Yeah, but you've got how you play at home.
Oh, I have how I play at home, and that was the tough. And the funny thing is, I had reached out to you. This was this past week, and I had actually just finished that competition.
Okay.
It was Georgia Golf Association's Adaptive Open over in Atlanta.
How'd it go?
And it went basically how you said. I didn't play how I played at home, but I learned a ton from the good and a ton from the bad. And I went in with zero expectation, knowing that this was my first ever tournament. I'm not used to this. I did have the flutters, like when I ran track from, running state as a sophomore and coming third in the state in hurdles and just being like, hey, when I raced in those times, I just said, hey, just let it happen. Let your body trust it and go and do it. Don't think about it too much. Just do it. And that's what I did. And thankfully I had a really close friend on the bag with me. And after both rounds, he was just amazed at the mistakes that were made or penalty strokes that happened, that I wouldn't get flustered. I remember I parred the first hole. The second hole was a par 3 and I dunked it in the water and tripled that hole. He said the next hole, it was like it didn't even happen to me. And I know that's a struggle that a lot of people have, but I guess that comes from my experience, 3 years, 4 years it took to get to be able to walk.
And you got the right framework going in. I don't know if you saw the press conference this week with Kyler Murray, who came back after 11 months after post ACL. And he's had a lot of haters, a lot of questioners and doubters.
Right.
And he said he really struggled with the flutters before the game. He went home. NFL guys will spend the night in the hotel and then they go home and then they come back to the stadium if they have a later game. And he said, I went home and I just did everything I could to try to, he didn't say control, but just to understand what I was feeling and knowing that I needed to get out there. I needed to feel it. I was going to have a high heart rate. What it does in golf is that the mistakes we make, we magnify because of our reaction to them. And the problem with it is we make a mistake and all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go. Oh, I just blew it with a triple. You didn't do that.
Right.
When in football or basketball or baseball, you give up an early run. It's like, we still got 8 more innings. It's okay. Like we're gonna work through this. In golf, we freak out. I had a player a couple of years ago in the U.S. Open qualifying who made a double eagle on the second hole. So, 3 under on one hole. And I asked him, I said, how did you handle that? And he said, I went right to the next tee where everyone else was putting. And I tried to breathe. I ate. And I just told myself, we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. And I said, well, if you'd made a triple bogey, would you have said the same thing? He's like, no, I'd have been so angry. I'd have felt like I was falling behind. I said, they're the same thing. Okay. And what you have to realize is that you always have a lot more to go. And so learning that through your first experience that's why performance anxiety gets us. We try to control it. We try to minimize it. But what it does, it just turns up the volume in our head and our movements, everything, and our reactions, and we suck at predicting the future. So you're better off just to kind of be like, okay, I anticipate it's going to get ugly, but I'm okay. Yeah. I'm okay. So good. When's the next competition?
So now we have a winter break, which is actually kind of nice. I'm actually glad that I hit the first competition being at the end of the season. Like I said, I learned a lot from the good and a lot from the bad that shows what I need to work on in this off season before the next competition. I think April is the next actual tournament that's close enough. Yeah, I've got time, which actually I like that. I got really kind of honed in on just golf and not as well. I say that I did work a lot with my physical therapist on strengthening some certain golf movements, but their overall physicality could really be improved. And I know I can hit the ball a lot farther than I do just from going to the gym and working out more. There is something to be said when it comes to the smaller, like putting, chipping, pitching. Those are very muscle memory type shots that you just really benefit from doing it over and over and over. So when you're in that pinch, which I relied on when I was in the pinch, I just go back to, hey, you hit this in your backyard. Just hit it what you're doing in your backyard. So I try to envision those things.
Reframing, turning into positive self-talk. Exactly.
Yeah. So that, and then I like I finished on Sunday and was like, I wish there was another tournament next weekend. I'm ready.
Well, there is. I'm sure you can go somewhere across the world to go find one, but let's work instead on building up these skills. I think take notes, journal everything that you had, put it in your book, and that's how you grow from this. So
absolutely.
I appreciate you joining us. Sharing that.
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to jump on last second. I'm glad we can make it work.
Great. Well, keep following, keep us informed of what you're doing, and we'll get after it. Okay.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Ash, it's one of those things, right? It's we look, everybody's judgmental of themselves in the moment. It doesn't matter. I would look at somebody from an adaptive standpoint and think, my God, that is the coolest thing in the world to see somebody overcoming that. And yet I have found that everybody in those adaptive sports is as hard on themselves as we are. And it's remarkable. So that was cool. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That was pretty neat.
Yeah. If you're following me on Instagram right now, what's up, Hayden? Hope you enjoyed that new shiny ring you got. Hit me up on my YouTube. I'm going live right now on Mental Game Live taking your questions. So if you dropped a question on our comments, I need them over on Instagram, on YouTube, so I can follow them easier. So hope everybody's doing well on Instagram Live. So let's take some questions here from the comments, and then we've got a couple that were submitted ahead of time. We'll go through.
Let's go with Ironside Eve. Why don't feels from the range translate to the course? Is there any research on this that you know of?
Well, it's not so much research. I'm not so certain, but I do know that the reason that we're different is that there's a long walk between where we're preparing, where we're training, and where we're competing. I was watching Creed 2 on the flight this week, and I hadn't seen it. And Rocky said something great to Creed right before he started his championship bout. He said, there's 3 long steps into the ring. And when you get in the ring, it's the most isolating, lonely place to be because it's just you and another fighter who wants to beat you. You got to be prepared for that. And I think that is a perfect summary of exactly what happens. When we cross the line into competition, it's a very lonely and isolating place. And our mind races, our body amps up due to adrenaline, and everything gets moving fast. So it's the fact that we want to play well that adds the culture in there. But we're also facing uncertainty. And the problem with uncertainty is that we're trying to control an uncontrollable environment. Consequences rise, control drops. When we're practicing, control is high and consequences are low. There's the problem. As consequences are higher, we're trying to do more. If you want to figure out what that means, take a plate, take a tray, fill it with a bunch of full water glasses, and walk across the living room. If you're not worried about spilling it, you'll do just fine. But if you're worried about spilling it, your body will over-control it and you will spill it. Okay. It's that desire to over control, which is the problem. So thanks for the question, Ironside.
Lewis asks, what's the most important mental trait in going low, like sub 65?
So if you've got the tools to go low, you've got the focus, the intention, and obviously the skill set to do it. The biggest trait of being able to go low is enhanced vulnerability. There's the lower you go, the more you risk. Okay. Think about like a pilot. I'll go back to another movie. Top Gun Maverick starts. Maverick is on the test thing. He's pushing it to the limits. The faster you go, the higher altitude you go, the more at risk you are of pushing the limits on everything. When you're at 5 under, trying to go to 6 under to 8 under, if you make a mistake and you fall back to 4 under, you feel like it's a lot worse than going from even to +2. Okay. You feel like you're giving in, and the mind starts, man, you were at 6 under and you came in at 2 under. Man, you blew it, right? The closer you are to greatness, the more you have to lose. If you watch any great movie, so let's go to Indiana Jones, another movie reference. Okay. If you go and you look at that, Indiana Jones is going through, but it gets more treacherous the closer you are to the treasure. And the closer you are to the treasure, the more you have to lose. The Houston Astros lose the World Series. They are crushed. No, did they lose it? No, Arizona Diamondbacks, excuse me. The D-backs lose the World Series. Okay. They feel probably worse than the teams that were eliminated in the first round or the teams that didn't make the playoff. They have more hurt, more pain, and more difficulty. We watched teams in the College World Series, coaches, when they got deeper in the series, they would try to exert more control. They would call more pitches. They would try to control more things. They would make weirder decisions that they wouldn't make in March and April. That happens. So being able to go low is about vulnerability. So how do you increase your vulnerability? Well, we don't build our performance around our ego, and we don't build our ego around our performance. We look at it as opportunities to perform. We look at it as opportunities to compete and opportunities to see how low we can go. In other words, look at it as an opportunity cost, not a need, have to, or ego-driven approach. That's hard. That's why it's very difficult to go low. Plus, don't forget too, you're also playing against the statistics. On PGA Tour players, let's say on average make 3 to 4 birdies in a round, and now all of a sudden you're expecting to make 8 to 10. That's tough. So that's kind of you're playing in a high vulnerability, but also low probability event. So it's a lot more difficult.
Tom says, in your opinion, is professional sports realizing that anxiety is real and hinders performance, and are they supporting it better?
I think the last couple of years, we've really seen a growth of understanding the mental health side of things and the amount of anxiety versus calling people weak or soft. They're now understanding how to build frameworks and support systems around players that help connect to their psychological framework. I give a lot of credit to athletes who've probably taken some arrows and bullets along the way, but also coaches that have been very smart. I'm very honored to work for a coach who puts the mental health and the mental performance side of things at a forefront. And I work with multiple coaches like that at Alabama. And I think it's because of the framework we have there and how involved we are with our coaches. But I think it's also looking at a situation of anxiety. The experience of anxiety is not something that we look at now as like, well, they shouldn't be feeling that way because they're prepared. It's a changing in understanding. It's kind of like you didn't want players to drink water during practice because that meant they were soft. Well, we know that is the dumbest advice possible now, right? We used to say things like, don't go swimming the day of a game, it'll wear you out. Okay. Don't nap. And one of the big things we had was don't nap before a game. Now we see the power and the benefit of naps. So some of it is learning, some of it is growth, and some of it is debunking many of the underlying mental myths that have been around and perpetuated for a long, long time. That being a high anxiety athlete doesn't mean you can't perform well. It's just knowing how to build an environment internally and externally to help us.
Marcelo says, any thoughts on the putting yips? Can you get rid of them? Do you have to find a new grip putting system / putting system so the brain doesn't identify the movement or feeling that used to trigger them?
I hope you, Marcelo, you've seen episode 3 of Mental Game Live. I think there's a brilliant explanation and discussion about the yips. If you haven't seen that, please watch that. The yips, usually what we do is we try to create an accommodating action to fix it, when in reality, the best thing we need to do is to realize how it impacts us. And if you watch episode 3, it'll show you and tell you exactly how to deal with them. Most of the time we try to reduce tension. Sometimes it's better to create tension. So if one thing that would help you on a grip, if you don't want to change your grip or your putting system, as you step into the ball, as you look at the hole and you bring it back, squeeze the living hell out of your putter and then let go and then execute. It's a little trick that I've seen used. It's something that I've done with players for a long time. It just reduces tension in the hands and the arms where a lot of people get the yippy feeling. But it can help a lot. And we had a question that came in on this, Bash, is golf the only place that you see the yips? No. Where else do we see them?
Baseball, 100%.
Did you ever have them thrown back? Did you ever have the yips thrown back at any time?
No, I did not. Because
catchers will get them thrown back to the pitcher. And when you've seen them, why do they come out?
Why did the yips come?
Yeah, from when a catcher has a hard time throwing back to the pitcher, what do you usually see? What happens?
The ball goes everywhere.
Okay. What happens in the dugout? What happens to the teammates? What do they start doing?
They're mortified.
Okay, they're mortified. There's usually a little making fun of too, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a little ribbing, but mostly it's done out of protection. Like, I don't ever want that to happen to me.
I don't want to do that.
Super embarrassing.
Somebody just put on Instagram Live, Steve Sachs, 100%. Mackie Sasser.
Or like Chuck Knobloch. He can't throw 10 feet. He like airmails it in the stands from like 10 feet. It's amazing.
John Lester can't throw to first base as a left-handed pitcher.
No, he's got a lob it over there.
Yeah, as a pickoff move. I mean, come on. And so you see him there. I've seen him with shooting in basketball at free throws. I've seen them in quarterbacks throwing. I've seen kickers struggle. Tennis serving. I've had a collegiate, no, not a collegiate, elite professional, pretty high level professionals go through, had to serve underhanded for a period of time. Tough game, right? They were able to work through it, but there's always a mechanical flaw in there that you've overcome for a long time that all of a sudden you can't. That's what happens. So watch episode 3. I think it could help you.
Let's go to one from our email comments. Do you think focus and mental strength leads to getting more out of your abilities?
So I used to love when I played. Come on, lock in now. Concentrate harder. I am squeezing the blood out of this brain right now, trying so freaking hard. When they say focus, it's not trying to focus down a tunnel. I think it's like trying to dial in the right station. Sometimes we have a little bit of static. And if you are old enough to remember what it was like to have a dial tuner in a car, you would just turn it just a little bit and the station would come in clearly. Sometimes focus is not trying harder, but it's just being a little bit clearer of what we want to accomplish. I find that that's the bigger point than anything else. It's not trying harder, just being clearer about what we want. Most of the time, when we say mental strength, I don't really like the word mental strength or mental toughness because the alternative defines that we're not, which means we're weak. Mental strength is more about directed attention. Are we going to focus on the distractions, which are common? Are we going to focus on the noise? Very common. Are we going to focus on our intentions? That's hard. So we can do it for a period of time, and then our mind gets distracted. Shiny object, squirrel running across the yard, and we go after it. Okay? And we start thinking about the past, the present, and the future. And all those things are critical. So when I think about focus and mental strength or toughness, I like to dial it in versus trying to lock it in.
Are significant others a distraction?
Can be, but they can also be an advantageous relationship. So right now in sports, everybody's going to make a big deal about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, right? maybe somebody like Travis Kelce was miserable without having a confidant, right? There are many times that I know of a significant other that has been a tremendous resource for a player. The main thing you need with a significant other is you got to have boundaries. Boundaries are critical for everything. Okay. And the boundaries are, hey, listen, this is my job, my career, my whatever. And this is what I need to do to be successful. And here's how I can use your help. People who respect others' boundaries will always make them better. If you have somebody who does not respect your boundaries and cannibalizes them, we have a bigger issue at play. So significant others can be great, but if you're the first to leave practice, the last one to get there because you're spending time with your significant other or hanging out with your buddies or playing video games, those are boundaries that have infiltrated your ability to prepare and be ready. It's the same thing about work, right? If you've got a buddy that you work with and you sit and talk to him all day long, you're not getting your work done. You got to set boundaries and remind yourself why you're there.
How do you separate self-identity as a human from your identity as an athlete?
By the way, if you see me like bouncing, I've got this little unit on my lower leg to stimulate blood flow for healing, and it feels like I got the hiccups of the foot, so I keep seeing myself like rock. It's a weird sensation, but I have a lot of people who will come to me and say, "I think it's wrong that I identify as an athlete." I'm like, why? Right? Like, okay. I mean, why do I have doctor after mine or PhD? I'm proud of the work I've done. Okay. Why do people, have, we're proud of the identity that we do, right? It's about priorities though. What is our triangle? What is our spear? If you go out to play golf and you assume, or you go out to play and you feel that people are going to like you more because you've, to be ready to, people are going to like you more because you hit 500 or whatever, you're going to be really empty. You need to look at it as a personal journey. What can you develop? What can you grow as part of that plan? You do those things, you're going to be better off. But if you think that people are going to like you more, we had a great conversation, and I'll say this, okay? Did you see the comments by Megan Rapinoe about her torn Achilles? That is maybe, and I'm not jumping on the rest of the stuff on Megan Rapinoe. I think actually she's been a very positive influence in the game and inspired a lot of people. Megan Rapinoe, though, her comments about tearing her ACL, and whether she believes in a higher power or not, that's up to her. But that may have been one of the most toxic narcissism things I've ever seen. And we were having this conversation today in physical therapy because I said the problem with Megan is the comments that were coming out of the women's national team locker room. This is what it reflected. I can guarantee that in that locker room, nobody could have a conversation or call her out because she's a more powerful force, and that narcissism did not allow other people to make comments. And so they felt very bullied at times and very weakened in that relationship. And if you don't know, what she said was, if this is proof that there is no God, that I'd be injured. Okay. In my last game, like, that's a proof that there is no God. Why would a God do that? And I understand the anger that's there, but what we have to remember is that our identity transcends our utility. Because at the end of the day, our utility is defined on how we impact others and make the world a better place. If your job, whatever job you roll, does that, then I think I'm okay with contributing to that. So let's take one more question before we jump out of here. Hope you guys like this type of format.
Let's see. My longtime coach quit. How can I click with a new one who doesn't know me / my game?
Interesting question. You got to build a relationship, right? You may not click. It may not be magical. It may not be love at first sight. I remember a teammate of mine had a long-time girlfriend, like all through high school, whatever. And I remember near the end, they broke up. And I remember him saying, went on a date with somebody, and I didn't even know what to talk about. Because he had been with somebody for so long that it became so run of the mill that he didn't know, and he had to learn how to be in a new relationship with somebody. So I think that's the same with coaches. You got to allow yourself to explore new boundaries. You got to push yourself to the outside the comfort zones. You have to listen to what they do and not compare to the past ones, the past relationships. So that's my thought. Any thoughts from you, Bash?
I like having someone come on.
Yeah, me too.
That's easy to set up for you folks, that if you're interested in doing that and have like a long, elaborate answer from Bhrett, that's easy to do. So if you would, just in the future, we'll set that up and get that, the streamlined process a little bit better, but that could work for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to do this some more. In addition to comments, I've always dreamt that Mental Game Live would be an amazing spot to do Q&A. Like I said in the very beginning, my goal with Mental Game Live is to answer questions for people who maybe can't afford to come see somebody like me or doesn't have the resources. And so let's make it free and available. And we can all learn from other people's questions. Speaking of that, we can learn from other people's experiences. Make sure you pick up a copy of Kick Anxiety's Ass. I know it's probably not the sexiest thing to give somebody for the holidays, but it is a great gift. I do believe in the book. I wouldn't have written it. God knows I will write manuscripts and push them off to the side if I don't like them. I do love this book. I do think it can help you. I do think we need to face anxiety head on and kick its ass. Okay. So we're going to be talking more and more about it. If you've got somebody who has suffered from anxiety and the book has helped, let me know, please. If it's brought peace of mind to you, I hope so. I had somebody send me a comment I thought was interesting. He said, the book is phenomenal, but I feel like you just took the wind out of me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm going to deal with anxiety my entire life, aren't I? I said, exactly. Just like our weather systems in our world are still going to have thunderstorms, we're still going to have hurricanes, we're still going to have tornadoes, and we're still going to have beautiful days. But if we get our tools better and we're not shocked, then we can better experience life despite having anxiety. And we can actually turn it to enjoying life with anxiety and embolden the colors. So hope everybody has a great one. You guys are great on Instagram. We'll continue to do it. Always check me out on Mental Game Live. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week as we're leading into Thanksgiving here in the States. And until then, hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Bring your coffee next time. 9 a.m. start.
9 a.m. start. Early.